Let's start with a geography question. Where is New Zealand? Is it image 1 or image 2? If you answered 1, you are likely a victim of the Mandela Effect. Join me now as we examine this curious phenomenon. So what is the Mandela Effect? Well, in short, it's when things aren't quite as we remember them. But we'll get into the real lunacy of it in a little bit. But first, let's just look where the name comes from. So there are people who will swear blind that Nelson Mandela died in prison in the 1980s. But of course, we know he didn't. He was released in 1990, became the president of South Africa before he passed away in 2013. One of the more common examples used for examples of the Mandela Effect centers on a set of children's books called The Berenstain Bears, written by Jan and Steve Berenstain. But proponents of the Mandela Effect insist that when they were children, they were called the Berenstain Bears. But in all likelihood, it's just people misremembering because they're more used to seeing names that end in steam rather than stain, such as Frankenstein. But over the last decade, other examples of the supposed Mandela effect have started appearing. What happened to the Monopoly guy's monocle? Didn't Britney wear a microphone in this video? Even pie art isn't immune. Look at the finger statue. Where should the arm be? And how about the case of US comedian Sinbad? There are people who insist he once played a genie in a TV movie, even though Sinbad himself has come out and said this never happened. That hasn't stopped the story from spreading. Then there is the infamous line from Star Wars The Empire Strikes Back. Allegedly, the line was changed from Luke, I am your father, to No, I am your father. Though George Lucas has made so many changes to his trilogy over the years, at this point, who would know? The Mandela Effect had made such an impact on popular culture that in 2019 it even became the subject of its own feature film. Or at least there are people who remember there being a film based on it. So what is making everything change around us? Bear in mind, it can't simply be that the people who believe in the Mandela effect could simply be wrong. This is where it gets fun. One theory you'll be familiar with if you've been watching any superhero movies lately, i.e. the idea of the multiverse. So this theory goes that parallel universes have merged together and we have now shifted to a new reality. And this is what's causing what we call the Mandela effects. Then there is the simulation hypothesis, or your matrix theory. This is actually part of a whole deeper pseudo-scientific philosophy We are living in a simulation that can actually be traced back to times of antiquity. Aztec philosophers, for example, believed the world was a painting and we lived inside it. The Mandela Effect is merely a result of glitches in the matrix. And when in doubt, the Illuminati, ruling the world one Fruit of the Loom logo at a time. In reality, though, it's just false collective memory. A 2010 study on false memories quizzed correspondents on the clock at Bologna railway station. 92% believed it had been stopped at 10:25, the time of the bombing, since it occurred in 1980. In reality, it had been repaired shortly after. Then there are some cases where things have simply been misquoted or misappropriated and spread into the public space. For example, there is a quote people often think was John Lennon on Ringo Starr saying, "He wasn't even the best drummer in the Beatles." Except it wasn't John Lennon, it was comedian Jasper Carrott. And then there are sometimes things just get confused. In the case of Sinbad and his non-existent Shazam film, for example, it's likely people are confusing it with the Shaquille O'Neal movie Kazam, in which he does play a genie. Psychologist Elizabeth Loftus has shown in her research just how fragile the human memory is. In her research, she was able to implant childhood memories in people of things that never happened to them. This was achieved through power of suggestion, which may explain why, in this new age of the internet, why there are other people who now also claim to be able to remember these things that never happened. And sometimes people are just wrong. So that's the Mandela Effect. It's a bit of fun, but not really anything worth worrying about too much. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time. So enjoy this weird and wonderful life.